So speaking of unemployment, today we're expecting to get new numbers, national numbers, and statewide on unemployment claims. About 294,000 Oklahomans have filed for unemployment since the start of the pandemic here. So this morning we're joined live now by Senator James Lankford. Senator, thank you for joining us.
You bet. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So yesterday we saw worse than anticipated first quarter GDP data, and then those dire unemployment numbers set to be released today. A lot of people, a lot of Americans and a lot of Oklahomans wondering just how much worse is it going to get here?
Yeah, that is the challenge that we have, is watching all the numbers behind us when we're also dealing with tomorrow, trying to slowly reopen the economy. The biggest point right now that we have to get through is the reopening of the economy, that many of these 300,000 Oklahomans that are currently out of work, when their workplaces reopen and they offer them to be able to come back, they can then return back to work. Then they're no longer on the unemployment system, and we can get re-engaged. But even phase one, as the governor has announced, is not everything all the time full on.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a moment now. They're not going to be able to restart tomorrow. It may be a couple of weeks before they can restart.
And I do want to ask you, Senator, speaking of employment, earlier this week you expressed concern over the federal coronavirus unemployment payments and that a lot of people may be receiving too much. Why is that?
It's not that they're receiving too much. Clearly, it's hard for anyone to say they're making too much or receiving too much. It's the balance between if they're on unemployment. For some folks that are on entry-level positions, they'll actually make more money on unemployment than they will on employment based on this additional $600. The goal of that $600 was to help carry more people, because we knew there'd be millions of people that would be affected by this. But we also knew when it was over, we have to be able to help people get back to their jobs, because the unemployment insurance doesn't last forever. It is a temporary measure. So I'm hearing from employers right now that they're concerned that they've started calling some employees and saying, hey, we're going to restart again on Friday. Can you come back? And they're saying, no, we're doing fine because we're making more on unemployment now than we were on employment. We'll see you back in August. Well, actually, that's not the law. The law says that if you're on unemployment, you can only stay on unemployment as long as you don't have a job offer. If your job calls you back and says come back, then you've got to be able to come back, because you're not eligible for unemployment. It's only for those who need it the most. As you just mentioned in your conversation with Maggie, there are some folks that are defrauding the system right now that obviously will work through that process. That's always so. But the next challenge is if you're offered the job to be able to come back, you've got to be able to come back, because you're no longer eligible for unemployment anymore.
So as a result of that, do you want to see payments stop, or do you want to see payments lowered?
So the payments themselves, the additional $600 a week, that lasts through the end of July. That is in place. That is the current law federally, and that's being applied in state. The challenge the state has had, like every other state across the country, is getting that applied in their system. Our system in Oklahoma is a very archaic system. Most systems around the country for their state unemployment is that way. And so there's been all kinds of problems nationwide with applying these additional dollars. But at this point, that additional payment will be there through the end of July. I don't want to see it extended, because if our economy is picking up again, I want us to be able to pick up again and have an incentive to come back to work, not an incentive to be able to defraud the system. That puts a negative incentive into our system, and we need to help people right now who desperately need the help. But once the economy is starting again, we need to help people actually get back to work so we can actually restart again.
What would you say to the people, though, that have a legit fear of going back to work for health reasons, because they are afraid they won't be able to socially distance enough, or their workplace is not doing enough to protect them?
Right. So they'll work that out with the workplace. Obviously, that's going to be additional guidelines that are going to come out from the CDC and from our state to be able to continue to be able to protect employees. There will be those individuals that are most vulnerable. The governor has already said to them, hey, you don't need to return. We need to make sure you continue to be able to shelter in place. That's good for them. That's why that unemployment extension is there through the end of July. For those individuals, there will be some special cases. For many individuals, that will not be so. So there's this odd balance that we're all going through right now to be able to figure out, how do we protect the most vulnerable? How do we re-engage the economy? You've got to be able to look at both right now, because it is exceptionally important that we protect the health of those individuals by those individuals wearing masks. Individuals continue to be able to keep their social distancing, but then we're also getting the opportunity to be able to get back to an ongoing economy.
Well, Senator, of course, you know how crucial the oil industry is here to Oklahoma. Right now, there are reports of a plan by the Trump administration to offer loans to the oil industry. Does this amount to a bailout, and is that something that you would support?
That's the same program that's being given to any business out there. So there's something called the Main Street Lending Program that was created during the CARES Act. It's for any business across the entire country. There have been statements saying, hey, oil industry should be left out, and there have been some in the House especially that have pushed very hard to be able to say, hey, they should be excluded and not be allowed. I've said treat all businesses the same equally in this. So while there's a lot of conversation about oil and gas, that rightfully so should be there, not just for our state, but for our nation. If we lose oil and gas companies across the country, that's not something that can easily restart, and we lose our energy independence that we fought so hard to be able to get. Many people don't remember now what it was like a decade and a half ago, where we were dependent on Middle Eastern oil all the time, and they could control us. We can't go back to that moment again. We've got to be able to maintain our energy independence. So it's important that those energy companies get a line of credit. This is not a bailout. This is an opportunity for them to be able to stay alive, and for the tens of thousands of people in Oklahoma that work in the oil and gas field to be able to have the opportunity to be able to continue and work.
I want to ask you about this. You've said you've expressed some concerns about ISIS using this COVID-19 crisis as part of their recruitment propaganda. If you could talk about that.
They have, actually. ISIS is always looking for opportunities to regain relevance and to be able to have some new attack or some new method, as they have encouraged members to be able to, if they pick up coronavirus, to be able to go into populated cities and to be able to see if they couldn't move coronavirus and to reinfect people. Very bizarre, very odd. This horrible group that's out there, that's ISIS, that's constantly looking to be able to cause a stir globally on this. Myself and several other members on both sides of the aisle have worked with the Department of Homeland Security, have continued to be able to remind them we can't take our eye off the ball on things like international terrorism because they continue to remain a threat to us, and they use the most odd ways to be able to come and attack us. So we're just reminding them, continue to stay vigilant. We're continuing to be able to focus on multiple issues at the same time.
Just a few more seconds here. Just to wrap up, what are your hopes or concerns as Oklahoma transitions into this reopening phase, or continues this reopening phase?
Yeah, everyone has the same concerns about health issues of our neighbors. That is a serious issue. And this is that odd balance that I was talking about before, that we have some individuals that are unaffected that are saying, I'm losing my life savings, I'm losing my job. They are in quote-unquote non-essential businesses, but it's essential to their family and to their livelihood. And so they're trying to be able to get re-engaged again, but we're also trying to be able to protect people around us. So the challenge that we have now is watching out for the health of others, and I'm most concerned that people just show up at stores, show up at restaurants, show up out there, go back to work and pretend this never happened. And we sit too close, don't wear masks, don't engage. We've got to be able to make sure that we continue to protect each other even as we re-engage.
Senator James Lankford, thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us. We always appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you again.